and welcome to the sixth pilot episode of DABEL Tech Talk. My name is Dale Bondanza. My company is DAB Enterprises, LLC. You can find us at dabenterprisesllc.com. My company's mission is to help your company obtain the next tier of success despite the forces set against you through a passionate focus on people, process, and technology in that order. Don't get it wrong. I have a special guest with me today on my second podcast of the day. We're doing a back-to-back today. My guest today, his name is Lenny Chessel. He is the chief evangelist for a company. I'll let him tell you about it in a second. But Lenny is a 40-year industry veteran who started at Southern Bell and found his way through the fantastic changes from phone systems and fax machines to high-performance compute and data center infrastructure today. He's a serial entrepreneur and a volunteer as well. He gives back to the community, provides thought and organizational leadership as part of his mission. Also, interestingly, he had a sudden cardiac arrest a mere year ago in 2022 that gave him further insight into the priorities of living each day to the fullest and not squandering the gift of life. So I can't wait to hear more about that as well towards the end of our interview today. But the topics that we're going to talk about today include the current and future state of data centers, why hybrid environments make sense, high performance compute and infrastructure, and where we are today, and then how is that sustainability weaved into your business? And then we'll get into a little bit more of the personal side. You know, Lenny and I kind of titled it differently. Lenny knows that I spent 17 years as a volunteer firefighter and EMT up in the Northeast, and I often used to kind of joke about life after death, which is exactly the scenario that we're talking about today. Is what happens after someone goes into cardiac arrest, sees the light, and then is brought back, and the importance of volunteering. And, again, a fun topic that we'll end with when we get there about Lenny's musical background. So let's dive right in. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There's some more information about Lenny on the screen there, and we'll talk more about that in a couple minutes. But welcome, Lenny. Is there anything I missed in in my intro there for you?
No, I was embarrassingly too much.
Okay, great. And I love your background. I love the I love the little fish up there.
Well, my boat's name is Rock,
Okay,
and Troll. So
nice. I like it.
Music and boating and fishing. So yeah,
Cool. All right, well, we're going to jump right in. So our first topic is the current and future state of data centers. So what does that mean? I don't even know where to start with that. I'll let you explain.
So the current state of data centers is the traditional space and power providers in very large buildings who deliver safe environments for people to house their infrastructure in a co-location facility. So a data center, co-location facility, lots of names. When I started in this business in 2000, the building that I'm involved with today in Miami and Little River, our 100,000 square foot data center, was known as a telecom hotel. So we've been through a lot of growth. So it's sort of the past, the current, and the future thing there. The current state is, like I said, large buildings who, when they were built, as in the case rebuilt, the data center that I worked at, this one 23 years ago, low density, meaning not a lot of power requirements for servers, which then in turn didn't require the immense amount of cooling to cool the current and future state, which is taking us into the high performance compute environment that requires a tremendous amount of cooling and power to run these machines. So a traditional data center, as our facility in Miami, average maybe 5 kW per cabinet. So it's medium or low density. We just delivered the future now. We have 5.5 acres up in Pittsburgh, and in our plant in Fort Lauderdale, we built 10 600 square foot modules that we delivered to Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago, and they're already up and connected, roof on, and probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks we'll be turning up that data center. So imagine we just prepared a pad, concrete pad, put all the infrastructure under the ground, all the conduits and whatnot, and are able to turn up a data center by delivering these modular data centers that we built. So that's 6,000 square feet. So to give you the comparison of the current / past, our 100,000 square foot data center currently has 6 megawatts of power. 100,000 square feet, 6 megawatts. We'll increase that tremendously. The data center we deliver to our campus in Pittsburgh at 6,000 square feet has 3.2 megawatts. So just do the math on that, right? And
Right.
so the concept is that we can power and cool high performance compute environments. So rather than a traditional 5K kW cabinet in a traditional data center, we have capacity for 10K at the low end, 35 at the medium end, and up to 75 kilowatts per cabinet on the high end. So,
Wow. So
dimensional-
6% of the space in Pittsburgh versus Miami, but still half of the power.
correct.
Okay.
So just fathoming that change in 20 years, right? So, we talk about Moore's law and how things increase and how that continues and has continued. And just to get into it, the driver behind that is what everyone's talking about, which is AI, primarily, with a lot of other.
Okay. So, and you mentioned the concept, and I want to scratch a little deeper, because you and I have talked about it previously. Because I probably step far back for folks that are watching this, because we have a very diverse audience. We talk about on-prem data centers, and we talk about moving to the cloud. That's the stuff us IT guys always talk about, and why it's important. And we're going to get into the kind of hybrid aspect of that, why you would have some stuff on-prem, why you would have some stuff in the cloud. And again, just for simplification purposes for people's background, the cloud is not some fuzzy concept. It is actually just a data center. It's just not your data center. It may be your data center, but it may not be in your physical location.
Right.
But you also mentioned the concept of a modular data center. And I want to just dive a hair deeper into that, so folks understand what you mean when you say that almost like, analogous to prefab houses that are made in a factory and then delivered, here's your four walls, here's your roof, here's your et cetera, et cetera.
Right. No, that's a great analogy in the sense that we build it in a plant. And the concept behind modular is that it's all scalable, right? So there are 10 of these 600 square foot, and they're 12 feet wide, 12 feet high, and we place them together on the pad in Pittsburgh. This our first full modular data center that we're building and operating. It's expandable, so we're able to expand that data center or build another pod, maybe another 6,000 square foot pod. But it's not, a lot of people think, oh, they're taking containers and making them into a data center. That's not the case. We're custom designing, building, cutting metal, welding metal, and it's built from scratch. The beauty of it is, and in today's world, I've got a modest background. I lived in a mobile home back when my son was born 40 years ago. And today's, if you will, mobile homes, you wouldn't know you're not in a house. They're beautiful. They're manufactured homes, right?
Right. That I forgot to use that word. That's the word I should have used, manufactured.
Yeah. But the same concept. So there's no impact on the environment, all that waste and all that construction material and all that construction activity in this pristine 6-acre campus in Pittsburgh, where there are deer, there are wild turkey, and we did not affect that property. In fact, we did some amazing stuff in getting rid of non-native vegetation, planting native vegetation, not wasting any of the mulching that took place and clearing some of the land. And so everything that we moved or removed was used for drainage, used for cleaning water. So it's a commitment to sustainability in the world of ESG, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you used the acronym, because I was gonna bring up the ESG points. I'm glad you did. So along those same lines, so you described kind of the current state of, that static data center, that monolith that exists today that needs, massive amounts of power and cooling. You explain kind of the modular concept of the future. And when you say hybrid, I'm not sure if you and I are talking about the same thing when we talk about hybrid environments. So what do you mean when you talk about hybrid? Why does a hybrid environment make sense?
So let's just clarify, it's not a Prius.
What?
Okay. So hybrid, very simple. And there's a movement that's driving some of the hybrid activity today. And that is a term that's called the repatriation of workloads back to the data center. And what happened was, you said it, IT guys, let's move everything to the cloud, move everything to the cloud. And somebody thought that was a great idea. It was yesterday's today of AI. Let's just implement AI. What does that mean? I mean, there's a thousand.
Right. We need AI.
And some, in the C-suite, they're all saying, okay, what are we doing about AI? Okay,
Right.
okay, everybody, let's do AI. Well, what the heck does that mean? Anyway, so
yeah,
let's move everything to the cloud because they're doing it and they're doing it and they're doing it. Well, one of the challenges of moving all your workloads to the cloud that are not in a SaaS environment, using your Salesforce was the first one.
Right, your ERPs, your CRMs, etc. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So that's a great application. Gmail, right? Put your mail out there. That's fine. But there's certain workloads, and again, as we traverse this world into high performance computing, that may or may not be the place for those applications. So certain applications, certain workloads perform better. You have better control, more control over the security. You're able to manage costs. You're able to manage sprawl. All the wonderful things that the cloud brought to IT in the world of IT. There were also challenges along with that. And so hybrid would simply state that you may have moved applications to the cloud that may not be performing as you wanted them. Again, you may not have security around them, and those certain workloads are coming back to the data center. So the data center, it's funny, it's in the word of cloud, people's own private cloud within the data center, if you want to call it.
Right.
This is just in the data center. But
Right.
it's a function of leveraging the data center because of the environment, because of the infrastructure, because of the redundancy and the uptime and everything else that goes along with it. Some workloads belong in the data center. And connectivity today, remember, Blockbuster had a great idea 30 years ago, right? Let's sell movies online. It was a great idea. There was an office in Fairway Drive where a friend of mine was working on the engineering of Blockbuster's delivery of movies to your home. Great idea. Everything in the office worked. There wasn't enough bandwidth to do that.
Right.
Structure didn't support that. So in today's world, and the ubiquity of fiber and the speeds at which we're delivering fiber for costs that are not prohibitive, to be able to have those workloads in a data center, in the cloud, all back to your users, who so many are remote today anyway. So, but the bandwidth supports the use of those applications, and there's no longer a barrier to entry to have a hybrid world. You can have things in multiple places and not suffer inefficiencies or bottlenecks from networks.
So kind of two follow-up questions on that. One example that I think of when you say, like you said, the three token words from the executive leadership team that I hear about: we need to go to the cloud. We need to do an agile transformation. We need to use AI. And I love the fact that outside of the two of us, probably very few people know what any of that stuff means at the C level. But when you talk about those apps that they shipped off to the cloud that they probably shouldn't have, the example that comes to my mind, because I've used it personally in my past, is video surveillance or physical security, things like that we talk about. Yeah, that really probably should be on-prem. In the engineering world, they talk about CAD and design and things where you need that local compute power. Are those examples, and are there others that you think people, again, may have shuffled off to the cloud but really shouldn't have?
Well, proprietary applications that may or may not reside simply in a cloud environment. I think it's a function of core infrastructure, right? So your most precious gems, like when I was in the cybersecurity space, I'd always ask, what keeps you awake at night, right?
Right.
What keeps you awake at night? So certain applications that we know, actually, here's a really good example. I read this article recently that said there are three major cloud providers, and all the banks have all their stuff in those three major cloud providers. And if that's the case, then there are only three targets to take down the entire financial industry in this country. So where else can that data reside where there's more control over it, that it's not in this, if you will, public cloud? And there's a lot of safety and a lot of security built into a lot of those cloud applications, but there's something to be said for your family jewels of data in a data center, in a secure data center, that where it is, and you can go and massage it, and you can go wrap your arms around the server and make sure it's okay, and not be at the mercy of a cloud provider. Certain applications, and even you talk to a Microsoft rep, they'll tell you, yes, this is a hybrid world we're living in. It's not like they're running away from that and suggesting that everything belongs in the cloud. But there are certain, again, proprietary databases or proprietary applications that may just not work well in the cloud.
Okay. Another and an aspect of how your company, which, by the way, I don't know if we've said it yet, your company is I Am Critical. Is that?
I Am Critical is correct. And then when we talk about modular data centers,
Right.
that's I Am Data Centers.
Okay.
Separate website, actually.
Okay, good to know.
Yep.
And I'll make sure we mention that at the end too. And how your company can help those folks, because again, the importance of that hybrid environment. So if I'm a medium-sized business or even potentially a large-sized business, maybe I have a data center today, maybe I shipped everything off to the cloud because I wanted to reduce that, but now I kind of do need something back on premise. That's where I Am Critical can kind of come in and help and say, well, we can design you a modular, or, again, using our example earlier, a manufactured home, we can design you a modular data center and deliver it on a truck. Here's your data center, spin it up, plug it in and spin it up. I know I'm oversimplifying it.
You're completely oversimplifying it because
Yeah.
It's not one module, but yes. So a good example of that, a good use case for that would be university doing a lot of research, right? And so we know they're crunching huge data for medical research specifically, right? If that universe is trying to house their newer, faster, high performance compute environment in their existing data center, the cost to be able to upgrade that physical brick and mortar data center to be able to handle that cooling and power is typically more expensive than if we were to take a half of 6 parking spaces, and I mean parking spaces, but let's call them 50-foot long parking spots. So say 3 or 4 tractor trailers, the equivalent of parking them in the parking lot, connecting across their existing infrastructure. So yes, we can do that, certainly. Okay.
And maybe and the kind of our next 2 topics were high performance compute and infrastructure and kind of where we are today, and sustainability. Maybe you can kind of even tackle those kind of things at the same time. Why is everything you've mentioned to date or to this point, how is that affected by this high performance compute and infrastructure? Because one of the things as a interim / fractional CIO, the thing I hear from my infrastructure folks is that, well, we used to have to cool everything down to this temperature in the data center to make it work effectively and efficiently, but standards have been raised to the point where now we can almost bring some of these data centers up to temperatures in the 70s. They don't necessarily have to be in the 60s or lower anymore. But as we move into the high performance world, is that changing?
You can still have a 75-degree environment, but in that 75 kW per cabinet environment, we're actually bringing the cooling right to the cabinet, and we're using 55-degree chilled water. So it's actually 55-degree environment actually at the right at the cabinet. Some of those same coolers, the chilled door technology is used in the 35 kW in the warm aisle. So the key is to bring cool air in and not heat the entire environment in that hot row. So we contain the hot row, right? And so, but at the chilled door where it's right in the cabinet, it's 75 degrees in and 75 degrees out.
Wow. Okay.
So because you're cooling the air, the escaping air right at the server. Now, I watched some videos the other day. These NVIDIA A100s, they don't have cooling fans in them.
Wow.
This is a whole different ballgame. And you have to get that cool air right to that it's not a chip, it's actually a whole. So we have a 2 petaflop machine that we built in our data center in Miami now that we're testing for our IM high performance compute environment. And so it's pretty interesting. Michael Work, my CEO, said he saw a demo and it was like a tandoori oven inside of one of these cabinets. But again, 75 degrees in, 75 degrees out. So why that's important to the other part of the question is the requirement to not only power these, but to cool them is part of the challenge industry-wide, which is the fact that the data center industry uses 2% of the world's power. and is creating significant impact on the carbon footprint here. And we're committed to sustainability in all of our practices. So in the building of modular data centers, our ability to build that tight envelope and cool a smaller environment. So cooling a 6,000 square foot environment is a heck of a lot easier to control that than it is a 100,000 square foot environment. Number one. Number two, in our practices all the way through, it's about waste. It's about it's about affecting the environment. Like I said, we other than pouring concrete and clearing some land on the property in Pittsburgh, we had a very low impact on the environment there in that community. Noise, workers, waste, I mean, the whole thing. So through the whole process, this high performance compute environment, because it is so using so much energy and so much cooling, that how you provide those services and how you house that is infinitely important. And the power usage equivalent in a data center can be way off the charts. But when you build to the standards that we build, we keep that PUE down in very low numbers. There's something called the iMasons Climate Accord, and we've signed off on that. So all the major data centers have committed to reducing that carbon footprint and reducing the impact on the usage of power and the usage of the impact on the environment. So we're part of that whole climate accord as well, committed to, as well as our industry. So we all know it's an issue, and we're just trying to lead the pack on that.
Nice. And again, I think that's, this is called DABEL Tech Talk for a reason. And while most of the audience, I would hope, are probably more technology-based folks, I know that some folks are not. And some of the reasons, even as we're talking about, I'm personally fascinated, again, is in my role as more of a fractional or an interim CIO. When I hear my infrastructure guys talk about, the high compute and the needs of the cooling, I think a lot of the folks that we were kind of joking about earlier in the boardrooms of, saying, I need AI, I need agile transformation, I need to go to the cloud. They don't necessarily understand some of the incredible technical requirements, not just, again, technology-wise, but even HVAC and the power and the requirements, and then the backups, and then you have UPSs and generators to keep all this, keep business continuity up and going.
Right.
So, and I'm also assuming it's your facility down in Miami as well as up in Pittsburgh. How do you actually, we didn't even have that on the agenda, but you just made me think of that. How do you power it from a backup perspective? Obviously, I have other friends that are in the data center space here in South Florida, and, my friends from around the country are always asking, so what happens when a Cat 4, Cat 5 comes through?
So the building is an old AT&T local serving office. It sits on the highest piece of property in Miami across the ridge on the Coral Ridge, number one. So we actually have fiber vaults underground. Nice. You go in our basement. It's unheard of in Miami, for starters. Multiple generators, multiple UPSs, backups for our backups, additional fuel. We run a 24/7 network operations center, security operations center out of the facility. Multiple layers of physical security, from the entrance gate to the entrance door to the man trap to all of the requirements that you normally would expect from a data center. Obviously, we deliver, but we're going through a transformation of this data center and improving many of the systems. So it's an exciting time for us. We're in the middle of a lot of that activity right now. So stick around. It'll be exciting when we finish all that up. Well, maybe nice. We'll do another. We'll do a live tour or something. Yeah,
absolutely. That'd be a lot I think wear
a GoPro on my head or something on that.
Yeah, exactly. That would be a lot of fun. I got to write that down, because in my last podcast, Greg gave me a couple ideas that I didn't think of either. That I need to find somebody, even though we joke about it, I need to find somebody in the AI and the chat GPT space, because I know we all know a fair amount about it at this point. So
I know a guy. We have a division called IM HPC, and
nice.
We have a couple of guys from Carnegie Mellon that are with us.
Awesome.
And my head spins every time I talk to them.
Yeah. I try not to scare myself with how much and how scary the landscape is, but I try to stay on the geek side and say, oh, this is really cool. But then, the side that got all these in the first place comes out and it said, oh my, I know where this is going to go, because I know humans. So yeah, let's get into some of the lighter subjects. So thank you for all that information. That was great. Well, lighter. So talk to me about, the lessons that you learned after experiencing sudden cardiac failure. Tell me a little bit about your story there.
March 6th last year, had an active day, and bike riding, boat washing, car washing, brunch, and got back to my brother's place over on the beach in Hollywood, and grabbed some laundry, walked up to the second floor, sat down. Our little Chihuahua mini sailor jumped on my chest, and like she always does when I go visit, and he heard this odd sound, which was me, I guess, expiring the last of the air in my lungs. And his partner turned around and she said, what the heck? And he heard the sound, and he's asked, and she said, call 911. And he said, no, you call 911. Pulled me off the chair, and he's a former special forces military in the Israeli army, and he's a boat captain, so he's well trained. And that military training, we went right into military thinking. started compressions, lasted about almost 5 minutes before Hollywood Fire Rescue got up the stairs and in to get me. And they hit me in my bone marrow and my shin with an interosseous procedure. Oddly enough, it was Narcan, because they didn't know why I went down. So I'm one of those few people who have had Narcan that you've ever met.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Hard drugs.
Yeah.
It's a miracle drug for people who needed it. It didn't do anything for me.
Didn't do anything for you. Yeah.
Not
Epinephrine probably
thing.
helped. Yeah.
And they put they don't use paddles, because, as
Right.
a rescue guy, they just put the patches on. And I went from flatline to sinus rhythm. They continued CPR, dragged me down the stairs. That was tricky, I heard, because I'm not a lightweight. Almost a year later, Lieutenant Brian Wilkie, little shout out to him, told me, hey, sorry about your head. I'm like, what happened? He said, you didn't feel anything? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, because you said see the light. I had amnesia for 3 days, by the way. But anyway, we hit your head pretty damn hard when we walked down the stairs, because most people are holding their head up, and we didn't think about your head and your bobblehead, because you're not with it. And right. We made a right turn, and your head made a left turn and hit the concrete wall. So glad you didn't notice anything.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks in the hospital. I have a cardiac defibrillator, aka patio fibrillator, because she was put in on St. Patty's Day.
Nice.
And life has been an interesting journey since then. I appreciate the sunrise every morning. Take a bike ride, and it's a lot of lessons. There's a lot of lessons. Be present, enjoy life, every moment, every chance you get, and the gift of life that I got, I share with my firefighter crew, because they didn't just save my life and that was the end of it. They saved my life, and I get to do some cool things. I was at an event for ChildNet last night, up on stage, raising money for a great cause. Next week, I'll be at Children's Harbor. I do a lot of work at Nova Southeastern and the Levan Center for Innovation, CIO Council event today, volunteerism. You mentioned that.
Yep. I was going to say, go ahead and weave into that. I'll follow up on it, but go ahead and weave into that.
I call it the great equalizer. I sat in a room with Bo Wrigley once.
Nice.
While I was involved initially with Florida Atlantic University's Tech Runway. And Charles Wrigley III, looked him up on Forbes magazine. And I don't know if you know, the first line says source of wealth, and his says chewing gum, which was pretty funny. And so I was in the same room as him at a little private room in a steakhouse. We were trying to get some money from him. And he had no idea I was a thousandaire and he was a billionaire. It's just, we were equals. We were both there for the same reason. And so when I mentor students and entrepreneurs, I just tell them volunteer. It will open doors for you. And no matter what you give for the right reason. But in my life, I've always gotten a 10x return on the investment of time and effort. It's just always we do the scholarships for the CIO Council. We meet these graduating high school students who are phenomenal, amazing human beings. They care about the environment. They care about the community. The future is not lost on our youth. We're in good hands if you meet some of these kids that we get to interview. And last night there was a poet that spoke at the child in that event. There was this young man, Woodson, who was living on the street. He just graduated high school. So we've got great organizations down here in South Florida. There's a lot of places to volunteer. No shortage of need for volunteers. And I'm just happy I get the opportunity to be here and to be able to give back.
And I think, and obviously volunteerism is also a personal thing for me, you know, having spent 17 years as a volunteer firefighter, an EMT. And, you know, while obviously that's fun and people have their own reasons for doing it, and certainly I did as well. But yeah, the what you get back from on a personal level, you know, I talk about it in a lot of different respects to say that, you know, on a day-to-day basis to you and I, as senior IT folks, you know, we get to be in boardrooms, we get to speak with some very intelligent, some very well paid, some incredibly affluent people. And at the same time, you know, what the experience of volunteerism gave to me was the opposite end of that spectrum too, was to be able to speak to literally anyone. You know, I often, one of my cliches is when I'm working with other executive leadership teams, I often ask, you know, do you know the name of the person who empties your trash at night? And that tells me so much about the individual, because it tells me, are you in the office late enough to have the custodial person come around and empty your trash? And then oftentimes, in my experience, oftentimes the custodial staff may or may not speak English as their primary language. And then that also tells me something about whether or not you're able to interface with those folks. So, and that just speaks volume, because, you know, again, whether it's speaking to somebody who's emptying your trash, somebody who's on your team, somebody who's your boss, somebody who's your customer, all that is so important. And the volunteer aspect, to your point, you know, personally, I've done the same thing. And both of my alma maters, both my undergraduate and my graduate, have scholarships that, you know, someday they'll have in my name based on, you know, kids giving their time back to the community and receiving a future Dale Bondanza scholarship. Hopefully not for many years from now, but, you know, nonetheless. So yeah, I completely empathize with the topic of volunteerism and what it can give back to you personally. Now, similarly, also on a fun topic, and I don't know that I knew this before you and I spoke the last time, but similar to my other half, you're also a musician as well, on top of everything else that you do. So tell me a little bit about that and your upcoming event that you have next week.
Well, some people joke, they say I'm a drummer, so I hang out with musicians, but I resemble that statement.
Yeah.
So May 20th, 5:30 p.m. The starts at 3 p.m. the Brews and Blues Festival on Deerfield Beach, right at the main beach parking lot, just off Hillsborough Boulevard. Going to be Adam Uland. I think he goes by the Blues. I don't know. There's a name. I told him we should be Adam and the Defibrillators. He hasn't bought off on that yet.
I like
but
that.
Adam Uland on the guitar, and then a bunch of great musicians. We'll do an hour set, 5:30 to 6:30. So it's one of those deals where you can just come hear the music for free, or you can buy a ticket and then drink all the beer you want. So
Nice.
Sounds
I like the latter option. I'll have to talk to my other half.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Anything else that we didn't cover?
No, I mean, I appreciate this, and like I said, I'd love to do a follow-up. When you know, maybe I'll go up to Pittsburgh. We can do a Pittsburgh. We'll do a remote from Pittsburgh.
Cool.
That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah,
too.
that'd be cool. I love it.
Actually show you the modular data center, right? So,
right. Yeah, that would be good for folks to see. I had it on the cover picture of the of our slide today, and it'll certainly be back there when I edit this in post and republish it to YouTube.
Right.
I'll make sure I put that picture on there as well. So
I'll also show you. This is something I carry. It is
yeah.
Hollywood Firefighters Second Chance. So that's a challenge coin that for folks in the military know. And it was given to me along with the firefighting crew that saved me. So again, I always give a shout out to the Hollywood Fire Rescue crew who brought me back.
And I'm glad you said that, Lenny, because you made me forget. I was going to make that point earlier to you that you said it subtly, but you and I, you know, when we had kind of our pre-chat, you went a little bit more in depth into it. And you don't have to do that now, but just so folks understand that you know, one of the things I truly appreciate about you, Lenny, is when you talk about when you went to meet, because that was a rare instance, I know in my case, you know, for folks that we, you know, pulled out of a raging river during a flood or something like that. It's rare for folks to come back and tell us about what effect that had on their life. And I know that you, again, have gone back to that crew who now understands the volunteerism that you do and how you help out, you know, kids, and all the other charitable activities that you do. You relay that to them. So it embeds it in the minds of these first responders that, again, you're not just saving a life. You're not just helping out this person at this particular time, but the ripple effect, the butterfly wings, whatever you want to call it, is so much greater than folks know. So, hell, I'll take it as my personal moment to say that, if you don't know CPR, it's the 4 hours. It's the best. It's the easiest 4 hours you'll ever give if you've never done it before. And if you have been certified in it before, then all you need to do is re-up it. Things change every couple of years. New research is done. Better ways, better techniques. It's still pretty basic. It hasn't really changed in the last 50, 60 years. But if you don't know CPR, go out and learn it. It's not hard. I can't tell you the.
Sorry, interrupt, but
Go ahead.
AEDs in the workplace, AEDs, automatic external defibrillators. I happen to have my own. I can't lend it to you. It's inside my chest. But AEDs also save lives. So the combination of, fast acting CPR and an AED. I was lucky the fire station was 2 blocks away. So like I said, I was there. They were there in 5 minutes. And can I just finish with this?
Absolutely. Go ahead. A
little bold, but when a rescue vehicle is behind you, get the hell out of the way, please. Because I look at that and it makes me nuts.
Yeah. If I can't say on a podcast, YouTube would probably delist me if I say the things that I used to say when I rode in the front seat of that fire truck about people who wouldn't get out of the way, and saying something not kind about, I hope it's not your significant other that we're en route to, or your parent or your child, because you don't know oftentimes until you get there.
Yeah.
So, but yes, thank you for that. All right, so thank you very much, Lenny. I'm going to throw up my my outro slide here, so just bear with me one moment. So thank you again, Lenny Chesil from I Am Critical. If folks want to get in touch with you, Lenny, what's the best way for them to do that?
Just yell real loud. I'm everywhere. No, L Chesil at iamcritical.com, LCHESAL at iamcritical.com, and go visit iamcritical.com and I Am Data Centers and learn more about us.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much again for that. I appreciate it. And I hope to talk to you again in the future.
Thank you so much, Dan.